Hello, fifth graders. So we're going to begin our lesson by just reviewing a couple questions from yesterday. So remember, yesterday we were just kind of talking about how fractions are really just mini division problems, and we can basically find an answer by writing a problem as a fraction. Okay, so let's look at this first scenario. It says 4 friends share 9 cookies. So again, before we write it as a fraction, let's write it as a division problem. So in this instance, remember, I always said if we're writing it as a division problem, whatever the dividend is, whatever that first number is, that is what we are starting with. So are we starting with 4 friends, or are we starting or sharing 9 cookies? Well, we're starting with 9 cookies, so it would be 9 divided by 4 friends. 9 cookies divided by 4 friends, so it would be, read it left to right, write it up and down. So it will be 9 divided by 4. Okay, and then in this instance, okay, I actually have an extra template. So mine's a little different. You should have a template right here because we can write this as a mixed number, okay, because it is, we can do a little division. 9 divided by 4. 4 goes into 9 2 times to get 8. We subtract and we get 1. So it will be 2 1/4. So if we have 9 cookies among 4 friends, each friend can receive 2 1/4 cookies. Okay? And the next one, it says 10 oranges split between 3 people. Okay? So what are we starting with in this problem? If we are writing, again, it as a division problem, are we starting with 10 oranges or are we starting with 3 people? Well, we're sharing or splitting 10 oranges, so it's 10 oranges divided among 3 people. So we would write it as 10 divided by 3. And again, this is improper, so we can do a little division. 10 divided by 3. 3 goes into 10 3 times to get 9. Subtract and get 1. So each person, if we're sharing 10 oranges among 3 people, we'll get 3 1/3 oranges. Okay, so that's just a little recap from yesterday. Today we are going to be modeling a couple division problems. And we're mainly going to be modeling dividing a whole number by a unit fraction. And I just want to review what a unit fraction is. So a unit fraction is a fraction with a numerator of 1. And remember, a numerator is that top number. And basically what a unit fraction is they name a part of a whole. So an example of a unit fraction could be 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, 1/6, and you should kind of see my pattern that I'm going with. So the numerator for a unit fraction is always 1. So we're going to be talking about today and modeling today are whole numbers divided by unit fractions. So let's look at this problem. It says 1 ball of dough can be stretched into a circle to make a pizza. After the pizza is cooked, it is cut into 8 equal slices. How many slices of pizza can you make with 3 balls of dough? So again, this is very similar to our problems up here. We're figuring out in our division problem, what are we starting with? What are we splitting? What are we sharing? And in this case, it's 3 balls of dough. So that's why 3 is what we start with, okay? We're dividing 3, okay, into eighths. So what we're trying to see is how many eighths are in 3 wholes. And how we write that division problem is 3 wholes divided by eighth. Because we're trying to figure out how many 1/8 are in 3 entire wholes. So how I modeled this, guys, I drew 3 wholes and I split those wholes, each whole into eighths. And to get my answer, 3 divided by 1/8, remember, we're just trying to figure out how many eighths are in 3. So what I want you guys to do is to count how many of these individual eighths are there in all 3 of these holes? So count all of those sections. How many eighths are there? Well, there's 8 in here, then there's 16 in this one, and 24 in this one. So 3 divided by 1/8 is 24. Because we had 3 holes, and we had 3 balls of dough, 3 pizzas. Each pizza was split into eighths, so we can get a total of 24 equal slices from 3 balls of dough. All right, so that's how you would model that one. You would draw out 3 holes, split each hole into eighths because we're dividing by 1/8, and you would count how many eighths there are in 3. So let's look at a few more examples. So this problem, it says 4 holes divided by half. So what I did right here, I already drew the holes for you. So we have 4 holes represented, and we're dividing it into a half. So basically what we're saying is how many halves are in 4 holes. So what we want to do, just like we did with this model, okay, we had 3 holes and we split each hole into eighths because that's what we were dividing by. In this one, we have 4 holes and we're going to split each hole into halves. Now, what I have here is I have these individual bars. So what I want you to do is to drag these bars over to each hole. And I want you to use the bars to split each hole in half. So how you would do that, you could drag one over and put it right there. Now that hole's in half. Drag another bar over, put it right in between there. That's another half, and another half. Okay, so all of our holes are split in half. So now we answer this question. How many halves are there in 4 holes? Well, if we count all the halves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So our final answer of 4 divided by half, or 4 holes, trying to see how many halves there are in it, there are 8 total halves. Okay, so let's look at this next one. 2 divided by 1/6. So you see that we have 2 holes already drawn. And how many sections are we going to split each hole into? Well, we're dividing by a 6. So we're trying to see how many 6 are in 2 holes. So again, you are going to drag these little bars over, okay? And this is similar to when we were modeling multiplying fractions, because if we want to split each hole into 6, we're only going to drag 5 bars over. So you should have 5 lines in each rectangle. So you have a total of 6 equal parts in each. So now our question is, well, how many 6 are in 2 holes? Count all of the 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have 12 6 in 2 holes. And you may be starting to see a little bit of a pattern. And we're going to talk about that a little bit towards the end. Okay? And the very last problem is 5 holes divided by 1/3. So again, you have 5 holes already drawn for you. And how many sections are we going to split each hole into? Well, we're dividing by thirds. So we're going to split each hole into thirds because we're trying to figure out how many thirds are in 5 holes. Okay, so drag over those bars so that each rectangle is split into thirds. So thirds here, thirds, 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 thirds. So now we can answer the question, well, how many thirds are there in 5 holes? So count up all those thirds and see how many you get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So there are 15 thirds in 5 wholes. All right, so what this topic was doing, we were talking about how to divide a whole number by a unit fraction. And remember, a unit fraction is just a fraction where the numerator is a 1. Okay, and how we find the answers to these, how we model these, is that this whole number tells us how many wholes to draw out, and this fraction tells us, well, how to split each of those wholes into. Okay, and it does seem very familiar to your multiplication models as well. And they are similar because fractions and division go hand in hand with multiplication as well. Okay, they are very, very similar. And we can use multiplication to help us divide. And you may have saw a little pattern here. Whatever we multiply, if there's a whole number, and we divide by that unit fraction, okay? 3 times 5 gives you 15. 6 times 2 gives you 12. 2 times 4 gives you 8. You may have noticed a little pattern with that as well, okay? So what you guys are going to do, you are going to complete a little practice after this. So it's basically going to be a Google slide very similar to this lesson, okay, where basically I am going to have you model out some of these problems so you can get your answer, okay? And it's going to be set up very similar to this in that I am already going to draw out the holes, and what you are going to have to decide is how many sections each whole needs to be broken up into. And really that all just depends on what unit fraction you're dividing by. If you're dividing by 1/6, you split each whole into 6ths. If you're dividing by 1/4, you split each whole into 4ths, and so on. And to get your final answer, you're just seeing, well, how many of those individual parts are in all of my wholes combined. All right, so you're going to complete that. If you do have any questions, please let me know. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye, guys. What's